Hi, John Reed here, Aerodinosaur. No, I'm not a B-29 Navigator or crewman. I'm just a plain old, non-current private pilot with an instrument rating with little additional aeronautical advancement or accomplishment beyond that and primary aerobatics. But I did pay to fly the Navigator Station of the Commemorative Air Force's Boeing B-29 Superfortress strategic bomber named FIFI in September 2015 when she visited Spirit of St. Louis Airport in St. Louis County, Missouri. While I was there, I picked up this pretty nice looking hat. I chose the Navigator Station because I knew from my manuals and the various publications in my library that it would provide the best vantage point for my style of what I call honest experience video. This station would provide the widest range of meaningful scenes, both inside the flight deck as well as outside scenery that formed a backdrop for the wing leading edges, engine nacelles, cowlings, and flailing propellers. I suspect that if you're watching this video, you already know something about the B-29, its heroic cruise, and its significance in 20th century world history from the wealth of very good information that's out there. When first flown in 1942, no other production aircraft was as large or possessed as many technological advances as the B-29. You probably also know its significance as the only platform to ever deliver nuclear weapons in anger, virtually ending World War II, as preceded by its unprecedented incendiary attacks on a scale never seen before. As you will see from this video that I produced in 2018 but not released until now, the B-29 was in many ways a giant blueprint that largely shaped the technology of the large post-war piston airliners such as the Boeing 377 Stratocruiser, the Lockheed Constellation, and the Douglas DC-6 and 7 series transports. The B-29, however, employed the earliest, lowest horsepower, and most primitive versions of the Curtiss-Wright R3350 engines called duplex Cyclone, an inefficient, maintenance-intensive, poorly cooled fire trap of an engine. The Commemorative Air Force has since replaced these deplorable engines in FIFI with the more advanced, rugged, and reliable Cyclone 18 hybrid versions of the engines, which are more similar to what was found in the growing airline industry of the late 40s and decade of the 1950s. Here are some broad statistics regarding the Boeing B-29 Superfortress strategic bomber. Boeing produced nearly 4,000 B-29s from 1942 into 1946. It had a wingspan of 141 feet 2 inches as compared to the Douglas DC-7C transport of 127 feet 6 inches, the Lockheed Constellation transports of 123 feet, and the Douglas DC-4, 6, and 7 transport series of 117 feet 6 inches. Empty weight of the B-29 was 70,140 pounds, the bomb payload 10,000 pounds, and gross weight fully loaded 135,000 pounds. Factory published maximum speed was 375 miles per hour, cruise speed ranging between 200 and 250 miles per hour, and the range of the aircraft was 3,250 miles depending on fuel and payload. Armament consisted of 10 50 caliber machine guns located in 4 turrets above and below the fuselage, which were remotely operated, plus one 20mm cannon in the tail. Standard bombing missions had a typical crew of 11. The B-29's power plants consisted of 4 2,200 horsepower R3350 18-cylinder duplex Cyclone engines, each with 2 General Electric B-11 turbochargers for altitude boost only. Advanced turbo-compounded Cyclone 18 versions of the R3350 powered, for example, the Super Constellations at 3,250 horsepower max takeoff, and the Douglas DC-7C at 3,400 horsepower max takeoff. Turbo compounding is not the same as geared supercharging, which all large radial engines feature, or turbocharging, and is discussed in my DC-7C Freighter series. With this background information, I'd like to present my previously unpublished video, B-29 Navigator Run over Missouri wine country. This presentation is about my flight as a guest rider aboard the Commemorative Air Force Boeing B-29 Superfortress FIFI, which you can make arrangements to do as well. Greetings. My name is John Reed. I've had a lifelong passion for aviation history, particularly the technical evolution of its hardware. In the past, I've published articles focusing on the peak of post-war aircraft piston engine evolution during the 1950s. Some of you may remember my company, Regulus Productions, in the early 1990s. We produced several technically oriented video documentaries of the last flying heavy piston transport aircraft powered by those post-war engines and still flying at that time. This production, however, isn't mainly about transports. It's mostly about a bomber, which can be viewed as a technical route of the largest American post-war piston transports, as well as the route for a major branch of Russian aviation technology. It's the Boeing B-29 Superfortress bomber, which can be credited with extinguishing the flames of World War II. The silverplate modified B-29 used its own fire as the first nuclear platform over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This saved thousands, if not millions of lives, were the war with Japan to continue. The technological importance of the 8,800 horsepower Boeing B-29 cannot be overstated. It evolved into the luxurious 14,000 horsepower ocean-spanning Boeing Stratocruiser piston airliner of the late 1940s and 50s, and its military counterparts. Ironically, through Soviet reverse engineering of several captured B-29s during World War II, it became the root ancestor of a Soviet evolution that would culminate in the massive 60,000 shaft horsepower Tupolev Tu-95 and Tu-142 turboprop strategic bombers and recon aircraft, which continue to harass U.S. coastlines to this day. The Commemorative Air Force B-29 B-24 squadron is based at Fort Worth, Texas, and has been flying its restored B-29 FIFI for well over 40 years. For most of those years, it was the only B-29 flying until 2017, when it was thankfully joined by the B-29 Doc, restored by a dedicated group in Wichita. I first became aware of FIFI's activities when I was in college during the mid-1970s. At that time, I remember FIFI flew in a Texas air show, piloted by none other than Colonel Paul Tibbets himself, who coordinated, commanded, and flew the actual B-29 Enola Gay mission over Hiroshima. In 1981, FIFI came to my home airport, Spirit of St. Louis Airport in St. Louis County. I called my dad to meet me there, and just as he arrived, the majestic FIFI was in the middle of a low flyover before circling to land. The very next year, FIFI would star in the legendary 1982 movie The Right Stuff as the mothership for Chuck Yeager's Bell X-1, depicting the first breaking of the sound barrier. A year later, in 1983, FIFI happened to show up again at Spirit, still in its movie set colors, including its encompassing anti-glare black underside. Fast forward to May 2015. At that time, I learned FIFI would once again be visiting Spirit of St. Louis Airport that following September, 4 months away. Due largely to recent upgrades from the somewhat unreliable wartime R-3350 duplex Cyclone engines to the much safer and more reliable post-war R-3350 Cyclone 18s, along with the installation of modern avionics and other current upgrades, anyone can fly on FIFI based on a current pricing schedule. Much of this is a tax-deductible donation to the Commemorative Air Force. I immediately signed up online for the Navigator Station, knowing this seat would, for my purposes, provide an optimal vantage point both inside and out. Looking out the Navigator's window brought me to an immediate flashback going back 30 years, when I flew on and documented the big cargo piston liners with my company, Regulus Productions. Every paid writer on FIFI has a different reason for doing so, not to mention those who have or had dads, relatives, or friends who flew and or lost their lives during the harrowing B-29 missions over Japan and Korea, or kept them flying around the clock under the most primitive and uncomfortable wartime conditions. That seemed to be the overriding reason for my fellow writers today. FIFI is truly a timeless flying ambassador. I'd like to cover just a few more things, after which I'll be quiet for the remaining 30 minutes so you can enjoy the flight. I also want to make it clear our technical summary here is very general compared to our flight documentaries of 30 years ago. FIFI's crew was on a very tight schedule, and I elected not to even attempt to bother them for details, though I know they would have been happy to share. We'll start with Dutch Van Kirk, who was the navigator on Enola Gay during the Hiroshima mission, and who is pictured third from the left. He was the last surviving Enola Gay crew member until he passed away in 2014. On today's flight, you will see things mostly from his perspective, as I am at his station. However, the massive turret structure normally crowding this station has been removed from FIFI. The crewman stationed behind the pilots on the right is the flight engineer who must fly the engines during every phase of operation. His importance cannot be overstated. He's managing the most complex and sensitive mechanical machinery ever produced, requiring ceaseless scanning, cross-checking, and adjusting. He's responsible for the many varying power conditions required to operate the plane. He responds to callouts from the pilot, and he also manages the many systems in the aircraft. There are many fine, professional, highly trained crew member volunteers who are current in FIFI. Today, Niels Agather is piloting from the right seat. His father, Victor Agather, was instrumental in getting B-29s combat ready during World War II, a logistical nightmare fraught with extreme setbacks due to the urgency of war. Victor Agather was also the prime mover behind the Commemorative Air Force's resurrection of FIFI in the early 1970s, and he flew her afterward for many years. Long ago, this B-29 was named after Victor's wife and Niels' mom, FIFI. It's been said that nearly 70% of engine wear on large radials occurs during startup when the oil system is not up to full pressure. To help alleviate this, pre-oilers are installed on FIFI's engines, which coat the critical moving parts with a few turns of the prop before the startup sequence. Each R3350 radial has plus or minus some 9,000 parts, and all these parts are now very rare and hard to come by. Therefore, it's desirable there be no metal-to-metal contact of moving parts at any time.
We don't bite. Come on in closer.
So you can hear me. I'm retired. He knew a guy flew this and mentioned it to him. And he was going to talk to him.
There we go. The observer.
After being gone.
Check today.
I was saying, I don't know.
Okay.
Driver's seat belt or no?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Down on the side.
Daddy out.
Test.
Turn your flash on, please.
Remove.
Heater covers.
Remove. It's called
Ops time.
recorded.
Engineer's pre-flight.
Complete.
Forms.
They are checked.
Okay. Fuel on board.
Fuel on board is 2,500.
Okay. And aircraft weight and CJ.
82,022%.
Okay. Trim test.
All right, as we talked about, the weather's good. We'll start off floor here. We'll let them warm up. We'll shut the outboards down. We'll taxi out and do the run up down at the end there, either the end or altitude, whatever they want us to do. standard call outs, I'll try to call you on 100
Yes.
and try to get to know them, and I'll lift off that 125. If we need to board on the runway, I'll call the abort. We'll both try to get to stop, stay on the runway. Decide at that time what we need to do, and we'll let everybody know if we need to get off. If we need to get off, we'll help everybody get out of the airplane, and we'll get off. If we're airborne, we have an emergency, we'll probably come back into this runway at 7,500 feet, so we can get back. If for some reason we think we need more runway, we can always go to Lambert. I don't know what else we got. But, other than that, we got to stand in the Class B, we'll go to the west. We should be fine on that. Any questions?
Not for me.
All right, force burn engines.
All right, hydraulic pump power
Okay,
Say what?
never mind.
switch. Hydraulic pump power switch.
On.
Parking brake.
Need a set.
Chunks. Okay. Hydraulic pressure.
To normal.
Hydraulic fluid.
2 gallons
Nose gear emergency switch.
is normal.
Cowl blast.
Open.
Oil cooler.
Or closed.
Generators.
On.
Inverter.
Off.
Pitot heat.
Off.
Fuel shut-off switches.
Are open.
Chip detector lights.
Haven't checked.
Okay. Flight controls.
All right. Free and correct.
Okay. All right, done.
All right, clear number 3 for pre-oil.
Give me power for one radio so I can listen to the ATIS and get that started.
You got it. Clear number 3 to turn. Clear to turn number 2. And clear number 1. Clear to turn number 1. Okay. Clear number 3 to start.
Jerry, when we get started, can you run over there to Neil's airplane and make sure those cowlings aren't going to blow when we turn?
let's get this over. We put down.
time to reluctantly climb out of the plane through the nose gear well and receive my certificate. Even though I was just a rider, I really felt I accomplished something, at least as one of the very few people in all of history to fly on a B-29. I'm extremely grateful to the Commemorative Air Force and its countless dedicated volunteers over the last 45 years. And here's my certificate, authenticated by Aircraft Commander Steve Zimmerman and co-pilot Niels Agather. And I hope this helps to motivate you to do the same the next time FIFI comes to a town near you. After all, viewing a presentation like this doesn't even come close to actually being there.